Starting a business isn't enough. You have to grow it. You have to stabilize it. You have to scale it. You got to put the right people in the right places. You got to build processes. You got to reinvent your product over and over and over again. All right, let's start with why. What are the biggest reasons why someone would start a business or create a real estate asset or create an intellectual property asset? So number one is multiple streams of income, because when most people think about starting a business, they're often focused on the income that it could bring into themselves and their family. And I think this makes a lot of sense, because building a business isn't just about a single paycheck. It's about creating a foundation for potentially multiple streams of income. And this is super important for a few reasons. I'm gonna tell you a story real quick. When I was 24 years old, I was engaged to my wife, Kelly, and we were planning our future. And one of our goals was to build a house together. And we knew of a lot that went for sale in this development by a guy named Ken. He was a big time developer outside of Cleveland. He's this incredibly successful guy with a ton of businesses. And Ken talked for about 10 or 15 minutes, and he was sharing stories about his life and his business. And it was just inspiring for me, because I was a potential entrepreneur. And so I wanted to start sharing some of my ideas. And I was bouncing around from this thing to this thing and this thing. And I remember Ken just stopping me, and he said, "Listen, man, always remember your home base." He told me that if he had tried to start all of these businesses early on, he would have failed at every single one of them. The reason he was able to start so many other successful ventures was because he spent the first 10 years focused on his primary business, building it into something solid. He told me that starting a business isn't enough. You have to grow it. You have to stabilize it. You have to scale it. You got to put the right people in the right places. You got to build processes. You got to reinvent your product over and over and over again. And that takes focus and dedication, commitment. There's really no shortcut. But if you do it right, that one business can be the springboard to massive wealth and opportunities. As I look back over really the past 20 to 25 years, I've never taken my eye off of my home base, which at first was my real estate investing company. And now it's my software and technology company. And that focus has allowed me to create dozens of assets and other income streams. And now let's talk about tax advantage income, because this is one of the biggest advantages to starting a business. If you download the US tax code from the IRS, you're gonna see it's over 5,000 pages long. And here's something that not everyone realizes, that a significant portion of that code is written specifically to benefit business owners and entrepreneurs. The government wants you to start things, to create things, to help sort of support the US economy. When you own a business, the IRS allows you to deduct a wide range of business expenses before taxes are applied. So here's what that means. Instead of really being taxed on every dollar that you earn, you're gonna generate income, spend it on things that help run and grow the business, and then you're only taxed on what's left. Let me just give you a few powerful examples of what I'm talking about. So why do so many entrepreneurs and business owners drive 6,000-pound vehicles? Well, because they get a huge deduction. They qualify for accelerated depreciation. They can actually reduce the full cost of the vehicle from their income in the first year. This is a massive tax break. And what about office expenses? Well, I don't care if it's a home office, if you're renting a space, business owners can deduct rent, utilities, and office supplies. This is going to reduce their taxable income by covering these essential operational costs. And business owners can deduct expenses for travel related to their business. So this is meals, travels, entertainment, if you're going to a conference, meeting, or even a team event. And these deductions, well, they allow you to reinvest in relationships and growth, often cutting these costs 50 to 100%. And for self-employed individuals, health insurance premiums can be deducted from regular business income. And these are just a few, but there's dozens and dozens more. And man, the third reason why you should start a business is because I want you to get to know Allie, and I think you're really going to love her. So Allie stands for Asset Loan Income. And it's one of the most powerful tools out there, maybe the single greatest lifestyle enhancer of the wealthy. So let's say you've built a business or you've bought a real estate portfolio worth $5 million and it's generating solid income. That's actually how these assets are typically valued, based on the income that they produce. At a certain point, you might want to take some chips off the table, but you don't want to sell that asset itself. You don't want to pay taxes on that. So you just borrow against it. Say you take out a loan for $1 million or $2 million. So that means you're cashing in on the value that you've created without losing ownership or paying a dime in taxes. And this is a trick that the wealthy use all the time, because here's the kicker. Not only do you get access to that cash tax-free, but in many cases, you can actually deduct the interest that you're paying from your total taxable income. So Ally is like having this hidden financial engine giving you access to wealth without breaking up the asset that's generating it. And the fourth reason that you might want to start a business is what I call the big payday. When you sell your business for a substantial amount of money, hopefully millions of dollars. For many entrepreneurs, this is a very real goal and an exciting alternative to the traditional retirement path. Think about the old way of doing things. So we're going to go to school, we're going to get a good job, we're going to work for 40 years. And if everything goes right, goes perfect, we're going to retire with a nice pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Now compare that to the path of starting a business, working hard, creating something valuable that the world needs, and then reaching a point where you sell it for a significant payout. Plan B is simply a much faster way to financial freedom. And a lot of entrepreneurs are wired to start things. We thrive on building, creating, innovating, not necessarily on managing and maintaining a business long term. I've seen it happen time and time again. People who are really good at operating in their ikigai, their unique ability, they spot an opportunity, they get excited, and they bring it to life. But once that business matures, once it becomes a solid home base, they're ready for the next challenge. And at that point, they either hire someone to run the business for them, letting it generate, a huge amount of income so they can really focus on a new venture, or they're just gonna sell it all right. So they're gonna take advantage of the big payday. And let me give you one more sort of bonus concept that I think is really gonna be helpful. I call it onioning, or peeling back the layers of potential within an asset. And I'm gonna just explain, I'm gonna use my family farm as another example, Mapleside. So when we bought it almost 15 years ago, we thought we were just buying a piece of real estate, like this real estate property asset. And when we looked over the one P&L, we saw the farm made most of its income in the fall, and especially during a specific fall weekend called Johnny Appleseed. This brought in a few $100,000 every year like clockwork. And that's when it clicked for me that fall was this incredible season for us. So why not create something bigger? Instead of like just one weekend, we decided to expand it into Pumpkin Village, a full season of themed weekends every fall. We had Johnny Appleseed, we had Hometown Heroes, where we gave free admission to first responders and teachers and police officers. We had Princess and Pirates Weekend, Superhero Weekend. We had Wild Wild West Weekend, which is one of my favorites. I actually got a chance to put a cowboy hat and cowboy boots on and just walk around the farm like an old cowboy, right? We had Spooky Fest and Pumpkin Fest. But the key here is we created a reason for people to keep coming back multiple times through September and October. And what we really did was we created this internal asset within the larger Mapleside Farms asset. Pumpkin Village turned into a business within a business. It generates millions of dollars a year in just a few months. And this is a perfect example of what I mean by onioning. Once you have an asset, you have to look deep. You have to peel back the layers and discover these new ways to accentuate its strengths. And we didn't stop there. We actually kept going. We noticed that guests left around 5 or 6 in the evening. So we thought, okay, why don't we take advantage of the corn maze, an asset, which was usually empty at night, and transform it into a wine tasting event. Well, that's when Vino the Way was born. We created this evening experience where adults could wander through the corn maze, and they'd stop at wine or beer stations, and we'd give them some charcuterie sort of under the stars. And this became a massive success. It sells out weeks in advance, and it generates over $400,000 a year with only around $150,000 in expenses. Once you own an asset, you can creatively sort of peel back those layers and develop these internal assets that add value. You can ask who else, what else, or how else can you generate more income? So the farm itself was this big asset, Pumpkin Village was this big internal asset, and then Vino the Way become this valuable internal asset within them both.